Sickle Souls.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Corner Guys Boxing Podcast. This is Thomas Trambox, along with Tim Rivera.
Good to see you, Thomas.
Good to see you too, Tim. And this week we have a special guest joining us. He's a well-known matchmaker throughout the industry, Brian Dillon.
What's up, Tim and Tom? Thanks for the invite. Looking forward to chopping up with you here on the Corner Guys Boxing Podcast.
Glad you could join us, Brian. Glad you could join us. Before we get to Brian, it's a pretty slow week in the sport. The only thing worthwhile is really Vergil Ortiz to talk about. For anyone that missed it, probably didn't, but he won impressively this last weekend on Dazn, stopping Roscoe in the 6th round, 3 knockdowns in that round, and he looked pretty impressive. I called him my prospect to watch out for, my number one prospect. What do you think about it, Tim? How do you think he looked overall?
I mean, he looked great, and the fact of the matter is Golden Boy really needed that performance. You know, they had pretty much flunked out with Canelo's September date. You know, there's all these rumors about him and Ryan Garcia. They also put together a really shitty main event for Munguia. So Ortiz, you know, he looked excellent, and Golden Boy really needed it. I like to see him face, you know, a better competition next. You know, even though Orozco is actually a pretty tough guy and has some good moments, all in all, it was a great performance by Ortiz. I didn't think that he was going to get up from, I believe it was an uppercut, the first knockdown, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Thomas?
Yeah, it was uppercut.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty nasty uppercut, man. So, I mean, it was a great fight. And Golden Boy really definitely needed, and I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah, like you said, with everything going on with Golden Boy, you know, who knows what happens with Canelo, Garcia. A few weeks ago, Diego De La Hoya lost, and the Rocky Kid lost. So really, the only main guy they have left, assuming Canelo and Garcia hightail it out of there, would be Ortiz. So, I mean, not to put pressure on the kid, but Golden Boy is really putting everything on his shoulders right now, depending on what happens with Canelo and Garcia. Next for Ortiz, I wouldn't mind seeing him against maybe a Ray Robinson or Collazo type. I think him going against somebody that can at least give him some rounds. No, I mean, Orozco did that, you know, going as far as he went with 6 rounds, but I want to see him go a little bit further. I think both Robinson and Collazo could offer that. And then the next step-up type fight that I would give him would be a Jamal James or Sergey Lipinets. I see some people online already calling out him and Spence, and that's just retarded at this point. It's just way too fast, and that's like a 2021 type fight at like 154, not a fight later on this year.
I think they'll keep it in-house and put him against Eddie Gomez.
That would work too. I mean, I really can't complain on the Eddie Gomez choice. And that would work. I just figure with Collazo, I envision him being a good enough boxer and having, you know, a good enough chin where he can go deep into the fight, so we can see if Ortiz can carry that power, maybe 10 rounds or so. But then again, who knows? Maybe he can blow Collazo out of there. I know someone that wanted him to fight Berto. That makes absolutely no sense because he blows Berto out in probably 1 or 2 rounds. So what does that really do besides the name of Berto? But I think people are just trying to get Berto hurt personally, but we'll find out. But yeah, overall, though, I think Ortiz looked really good. He lived up to my billing as my favorite prospect, and it's really going to be interesting to see with Golden Boy what they do with him next. It looks like he's staying at 147. It's a good weight as far as the names of fighters he can get in there, the profile of fights. So it's going to be really interesting to see where the kid goes from here.
Definitely, man.
And on to next weekend, there's an ESPN Plus card. Navarrete's on it, the guy that beat Dogbo twice. And that's really all. August is a pretty slow month for boxing. But that's why we also have our special guest with us, Brian Dillon. He's known throughout boxing. He's a great matchmaker. He's one of the best guys for me working in the sport that I ever met, where I still have his number in my phone because I didn't want to blow his house up and murder his family. So that just proves how good of a guy he is. But, yeah, welcome, Brian Dillon, to the show. Let us know a little bit about yourself for the fans that are unfamiliar with you.
Thanks a bunch, guys. I appreciate it. But to go back a little bit on your discussions about Golden Boy, and I don't think they're any longer the standard of boxing. They are in Golden Boy and title only. They don't have that many prospects going on other than Canelo. This gentleman now, Vergil Ortiz, that you were talking about. What I do want to make mention, though, is there's a local prospect here, Lamont Roach, signed to Golden Boy as well. He's going to be a guy to make some noise in the 130, 135. I think he has an interim title fight coming up with the WBO, I think in November. So mark that name down, Lamont Roach. He's locally trained here by his uncle, Lamont Roach, the second. Really good guy, comes from a good camp, well-schooled, great fundamentals. I believe he's a Golden Boy fighter. He's not the media darling. He's not the, camera blitzing type of guy. He's reserved, under the radar, quiet. But the skills and capabilities are there. And if he gets with the right marketing team, the right, glam type people, he definitely can make some noise in and out of the ring in boxing. Remember that name, Lamont Roach.
I believe he's going to face Jamel Herring.
Yeah. I think he's going to beat Herring. That's coming up in what, November or something like that? October, November?
7th, I think.
Okay. When is it?
November 7th, I believe.
Yeah. I think he beats Herring, and that's going to be his christening. That's going to be his indoctrination into the wide scale, landscape of boxing. When in this area, we've known him since he was 12, 13 years old, through the amateur ranks, under the radar as a professional, fighting on these undercards with Golden Boy and a couple other outfits. He's ready to announce his presence with authority, to quote Epi Calvin LaLuz from Bull Durham.
Well, I got a question for you, Brian, actually, in regards to Roach.
Okay.
Why don't you think that Golden Boy promotes black fighters like they do Spanish fighters?
Oh, man, you just throwing the race bomb right into this. I honestly, I don't know. Maybe it has a lot to do with Golden Boy maybe being a West Coast promotional company, Nevada, Mexico, Texas, and stuff like that, being West Coast where there is a wealth of talent in all ethnic groups, but it's a Hispanic-driven, Mexican-driven, Mexican-American-driven company with Bernard Hopkins involved as well, with the African-American perspective. But I really can't answer that question. Maybe it's just based on geographical location at all, geographical location. First and foremost, you think California, Texas, you think baseball, football, other sports, other avenues, When you look at the East Coast, you got maybe 3 months out of the year to play football, 3 months out of the year to play baseball. Some of these folks on this end have another avenue to explore. Maybe they take up boxing because the football and the baseball opportunities might not be there. Where in the West Coast, you can play football, baseball year-round. Maybe. I don't know. It's a great question.
Yeah, because they have a lot of they have a few very talented black fighters that seem to just, be in the background. They got this kid, Javel Mazzani, I think. He used to train with Ann Wolf.
Okay.
They just stunk up his career. I mean, he's just, in the back burners of Golden Boy. And I just always, I believe Errol Spence actually called De La Hoya out on that when De La Hoya congratulated him. And just
said, I really don't know. I hate to speculate on that. Let's face it. Golden Boy's been all about Canelo and Canelo's deal for the last 6, 7, 8 years. They really haven't pushed anybody, regardless, white, black, Chinese, Hispanic. They really haven't pushed anybody but Canelo.
That's true.
Like Brian was suggesting, I think it's more to them catering to the audience that they have. I mean, I don't think, Golden Boy signing black guys like let's fuck up their whole career and they're laughing. But I just think the audience that they have in, like Brian said, their geographical region, it's a large Mexican / Central American audience. And the easiest way to cater to that is by having fighters of that ethnicity. Because boxing is the most, ethnically divided sport. Because I know people that whatever country they're from, that and soccer or football for, overseas. But, I know people that will just root for whatever fighter that their race or ethnical background is above anything else. And it's like that compared to I can't really think of any other sport besides, maybe soccer here that it's like that way. So in that sense, I think Golden Boy being based and having a lot of shows out in California, Texas, that region is just catering to the fans that they have that are always going to be there to support them.
Absolutely. All right.
Well, there we go on that. But Brian, for anybody that's unfamiliar with you, they can check you out on BoxRec. I don't know how many of the shows they have listed for you, but there's probably more they never actually had. But they can check all your matchmaking shows in BoxRec. I know that you usually do Maryland, Virginia, Washington, D.C., that area right there, and a little bit of New Jersey. So you're kind of like that Eastern
East Coast swing guy. Yeah, no, my matchmaking, my paid for matchmaking type duties have been limited to the DMV area, some New Jersey, a little bit of North Carolina. But I don't like to call it booking agent because there's a sleazy negative connotation to it. But I've done independent matchmaking for every major promoter around the world since the late 2008, 2009. I only decided to focus on matchmaking from 2013 on, where I'm exclusively just a matchmaker. I'm no longer really booking fights for big promoters anymore. But yeah, no, I'd like to say I'm global, but most of my work is in this region. But every now and again, I'll get a fight overseas, or I'll get a fight in Canada or in Mexico, Europe, and occasionally and whatnot. So yeah, it's just about helping these youngsters, these locals here build their brand. A lot of these guys know they're not going to be world champions and sign mega deals with Dazn or these other top companies, Matchbook, BoxSpring, whatever the name they're called, Matchroom, whatever. So they're trying to build their brand locally, build their local fan base, and I take great pleasure and pride in helping these folks establish their brand.
So, Brian, let me ask you, out of all the shows that you matched, and I know you matched actually a lot of really big fighters. Now, I know you did a few of Jarrett Hurd's fights, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I did 10 for Jarrett. 10 for Jarrett. I think 10 out of his first 14.
That's beautiful. So, out of all these kids that you matched, who was the one that you found was the can't miss prospect that you matched?
Wow, that's a great question. Man, it's easy to say Jarrett because Jarrett, has been. I think he was, But the first time I saw Gervonta Davis pro debut, Tank, he fought Keystone Boxing in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. It was a debut against Jacob Nanau, and he just had this. His skills were understandable. He was a national champion, Golden Gloves, but he just had this persona. He had something you really can't teach someone. You have to have it, in order to be a major star. You can be the best fighter in the world. You can have the best technical ability in the world, and you can become a star. But you can't make that crossover, have that appeal, unless you have that, I don't want to say swag, but you have that it factor, which Mayweather has and Broner had for the time. Even before Davis developed into this, upper echelon, pretty much elite fighter, he had his outside the ring elite already down pat. He was already, I don't want to call him a diva because he's not, but he already had that. He had that media, that outside the ring presence. So I thought, seeing that after someone's first fight, then having him again on his second fight on another card I did with Keystone Boxing, I was like, this kid, unless this kid gets caught up in something, he's just give him the belt now. Just give him right now. And there was, Gervonta Davis, Jarrett Hurd. Jarrett didn't have the fanfare that a lot of these local prospects had. Jarrett was always in tough weight classes. but there was just something about Jared after his third or fourth fight that I was like, this kid's got something, and he had a great team around him. And after his second fight, I remember his trainer, after he knocked someone out in like the second or third round, had to work a little bit, but it didn't work hard. His trainer looked down at me and said, Brian, no more of this shit. And he wanted, Jared to step on it right away. Sorry for cussing on the broadcast.
No, we do it all the time.
They said, no more of this shit. Step this up for us, please. And it paid its dividends, But to answer that question, Tim, Gervonta Davis, 100%.
All right. How do you think a fight between him and Farmer would turn out?
I think you know what? I appreciate Tevin Farmer and everything he does in boxing, and stuff like that. Took on a couple L's. It's easy to, cancel your career after this and just, continue to fight to make money, provide a little bit of living. But he stuck to his game plan, and it made himself a marketable fighter and whatnot. But Gervonta Davis beats this kid inside 5 rounds. I can't envision anything else unless Tevin Farmer's trainer hops in the ring with the stool and hits Davis in the back of the head with it. I can't envision it even being remotely competitive.
Wow.
Well, what do you think is the holdup with Gervonta Davis's career? I mean, granted, he's still young. He's 24, and he has, the amateur background that you touched on, 22 pro fights. But it just seems like, the best opponent I can think of off the top of my head was probably Pedraza, which was a really nice win. But that was 2.5 years ago. Well, and it just seems, like his career is like, when do they push him, or why haven't they pushed him?
But who do they push? Who do they push him against?
There's a lot of people in that division, though.
Really? Think about it. Is there now? Think about it. Who is? He's a world champion already, so it's not like, okay, we can maybe unify it. Great, but who's a big payday at that weight class? Nobody. No one's a big payday in that weight class.
I agree with that. Maybe Vergil is the next best payday. I would think no one else, like you said, is a good payday. But in that sense, though, all right, if you go up to even, let's say, 135, and then you've got Lomachenko, and maybe if they brought Garcia down somehow, or things like that.
I think that's the look. I think that's I don't know this. I'm not cool with not cool with Tank and his team, but I'm not into it like a lot of matchmakers and boxing people are in their communities. I kind of stay away from everything. I just matchmake and that's it. I don't even like going to the fights I do. So I don't really hear anything, but I think that's their plan. Couple fights, not easy fights, but stay busy type fights, get some work, and, build up. Lomachenko is everyone's dream fight. It's like everyone at 154 to 168, and even now 170. Canelo's the dream fight, and how it was with Mayweather years ago. The money fight was to fight Mayweather, regardless you knew you were winning or not. I think Davis's team has a plan for Lomachenko, not this year, maybe beginning of next year. And there's also, underlining, Gary Russell and Gervonta Davis. Maybe Gary Russell coming up to 130 to fight Gervonta Davis.
Yeah, I heard that. And Santa Cruz was another rumor I heard moving up to maybe fight Davis.
Gervonta Davis annihilates Santa Cruz.
I agree.
Santa Cruz will need Santa Claus after that fight.
I think Gary Russell will definitely be a closer fight. I don't see Davis annihilating him, but Santa Cruz would get annihilated. He's not fast enough. It would be. I agree with Brian on that point.
I think look at it too. You also Davis is 5'6", 5'7". It's not like he can go up to 40 or 47 to fight anyone. He's just going to be too short. You start fighting guys, 6'1", 6'2", when you get into those 40s and 47. So he's going to be in the 30, 35 for the longest time. And I think the fight, and I guess if you can say in the immediate future, not the immediate distant future, is going to be Lomachenko. That's the only fight really for him, in my opinion.
Makes sense.
Yeah, to me, it's like, that makes sense to me, but I'd just rather see him fight, a little bit better competition while waiting for Lomachenko than what we have. There's decent names in the division. Joseph Diaz, Farmer, which they may fight Farmer next, Vergil, Cancio, there's that Russian kid, Rakhimov, whatever the hell his name is. Yeah, just I know the talent's there.
Yeah.
I just see him show it against.
Well, yeah, Tom, you're right. The talent's there, but think about it from, put it on, put it in, think about it from Davis's eyes and Leonard Ellaby's eyes. What do they get out of fighting there's nothing to gain other than staying active, fighting those types of guys. There's nothing to gain. You have everything to lose. He just sold out Tank. Now, I've made 20 fights in the Baltimore area in the last 7 years. 20 fights. And you can combine the attendance from all 20 of those fights I did, and you couldn't match the attendance that attended the Gervonta Davis fight 3 weeks ago up in Baltimore at the Royal Farms Arena. He sold out the building. They have a cash cow. They have a money stream. They have easy fights in his locale, selling out the building, printing money in the basement. Why would they jeopardize that for Burchelt or Tevin Farmer maybe, but some of these other guys, Cancino, his record looks like last night's Powerball number. So there's just too much they could jeopardize by fighting those types of fights. Not too much to gain.
I'd say same. The risk reward factor is just not there.
Yes. The guy he just fought, I can't even remember his name. I knew going into it, I didn't think he was going to be disposed of that quickly, but he was looking for a way in, not a way out. He was looking for a way out, not a way in. I'm sorry. He didn't want to be in that building. Davis, you can only fight who they put in front of you.
No, that's true. It's true.
I know his trainer Calvin really well. I know his trainer Kenny Ellis, and I know Gervonta a little bit. That guy will fight anybody. Calvin will fight him with anybody. Calvin cares, but Calvin's a trainer. The type of trainer Calvin Ford and Kenny Ellis are like, look, dude, you're gonna fight who we basically put in front of you. They don't get to make those calls these days. They get a little bit of oversight. They get a little input, but that comes from Leonard and Floyd, I would imagine, and that team, who and what and where. I think Davis beats honestly, outside of Lomachenko, and I think it's a toss-up, quite frankly. It might be a little homer bias, a little hometown bias, but I think it's a toss-up between them two. But other than that, I think he beats anybody from 135 down. Anybody. So why risk it?
I can't argue the thinking. Why, like you said, the risk reward factor is just not there, even though we're having to see him fight a little bit better of opponents. But
he's Floyd's only marketable fighter at this point.
He has
Floyd does have some bums in his roster. Floyd does have some bums.
Yeah, he got a lot of bums. Yeah. I believe he got Jalen Love. No offense to him, but
another bum.
He's not.
All these guys. Don't get me wrong. All these guys beat my ass, whoop my butt. But from a marketability, from a profitability, from a let's get him a title ability, yeah. So and honestly, Floyd. I don't think Floyd's entirely out of the game from a competitive standpoint either. So, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, now that you mentioned Ford, and I believe this guy's trained with him too, and I know he's down near area. I think he's in Maryland. What do you think about Lorenzo Simpson? He's an upcoming middleweight, super middleweight kid. I think he's 5-0, 4 knockouts.
Truck. Truck's dynamic. Truck is young. Truck is going to be a world champion by the time he turns 21.
Wow.
Is he going to beat Canelo Alvarez? Probably not, but I think Alvarez will move on. Some of these other guys who are holding these belts. Truck's got all the goods. He's got the good team behind. He's got the blueprint already. They built Truck like they built Tank. They built them the same way, same blueprint.
Exactly. I remember Lorenzo Simpson from the amateurs, and I was impressed with him even there. I know he had something like 200 something wins and
4 losses. 4 losses. Yeah. They use the identical blueprint they use for Gervonta Davis. And yeah, he's he's definitely he's going to win a title before he loses a title, obviously. But I think his title shots are going to come, I think, a little bit quicker than most. You know, he's got the backing, he's got the team, he's part of that Davis clique. You know, he can fight.
Yeah, so for any fans out there that aren't familiar with Lorenzo Simpson, I would definitely YouTube him or try to catch his next fight, because I think he's one of the most talented up-and-coming guys, probably with under 10 fights that we have coming up right now.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Yeah, and he's got a good team, and from what I understand, he's a humble fella as well.
Yeah, because I know he's friends with Haney, and Haney seems to be kind of down to earth and head on straight. So I imagine, you know, people like that kind of roam together. So I kind of envision he was kind of the same too without knowing him.
Yeah.
So promoter-wise, what do you think has been your favorite promoter to work with, and who's been your least favorite promoter to work with in the sport?
Oh, man. As far as from a matchmaking standpoint or a booking agent standpoint?
You could even do both or one or the other, whichever one you prefer.
My favorite promoter to book fight for have been top-ranked Matchmaker Brad Goodman. You know, Brad, you know, is difficult to deal with sometimes, you know, because he's got a busy, stressful job, matching all these fights, doing all these fights around the world. So I wouldn't want his job. You know, he couldn't pay me enough to do his job, although it's great. He couldn't pay me enough to do it. I like working with him. Booking, I'm not a big fan of DeBella. I don't work with DeBella, for DeBella, or anything anymore. I don't do anything DeBella. Matchmaking locally, my favorite promoter to work for is GU Promotions and Jeff Gatlin. You know, when in Keystone Boxing, I got to give love to Keystone Boxing, who pretty much gave me my start in this area, you know, and allowed me to work with some great guys and learn my craft. But my favorite to work with is Jeff Gatlin at GQ Promotions, and here's why. And I'll get to my one I will never work with ever again briefly. Jeff Gatlin's the type of guy, you know, he's a boxing guy. He promotes a couple guys, has some managerial stuff with some guys. If something goes wrong on a club show level, most promoters scream bloody murder. It's everybody else's fault and whatnot. Jeff the type of like, screw it, just let's move and get someone else. There's no harping over it. There's no, you did this wrong. You cost me $50. You know, you overspent $200, all this crap. He's just so chill and laid back. Now, don't get me wrong. He doesn't want to lose thousands of dollars either, but when there's a hitch in the giddy up or some type of struggle, he doesn't dwell on it like some of the rest of these mooks I work with. Now, easily, hands down, the worst promoter I've ever worked for is Tony Jetta.
Really?
Yeah, nice kid, nice guy. I consider him a friend still, but I wouldn't work for him on a bet anymore.
Why is that?
He just calls you every 15 minutes. Did you get the contract from this guy? Did you follow up with this guy? Did you do this? Did you do that? I mean, you could look up micromanaging in the dictionary, right? Multiply that by 15, and there's a picture of Tony Jetta.
Good.
Now, we all have life stresses and life pressures and other parts of our life going on because none of us do boxing for a living, you know, and I get that, you know, but it was like, yeah, it was by far the last show. The first couple of shows were okay. I'm not going to, you know, say they weren't with him, but the last show I did with him was easily not even the worst experience in boxing I've had in my life. It was one of my life's worst experiences ever.
Wow.
Like, I quit like 3 weeks before the show. I finished out the show. I did what I did, but I told him like 3 weeks before the show, dude, we're done after this. I ain't never. I've even blocked him on my phone. I don't, you know, I'm cool.
Oh, shout out to Tony Jeter. Wow.
Yeah, but he's doing good things promotional wise up here. He's got a direct exclusive with the local casino here, highlighting guys, and he's doing good for fighters up here, I guess. You know, but yeah, you asked me who's the worst, and it's been him.
So now we know.
Yeah. So I got a question. Demetrius Andres, why are you such a big fan?
Say it again, Tim?
Demetrius Andres, why are you such a big fan?
Oh, man, why? I'm a Boston guy. He's a Providence kid. You know, I know his dad. I've known his dad since the late 90s. You know, his dad, Paul, his brother, Michael, his half-brother, Maceo. I have a personal relationship. And I just seen Andrade going through the amateurs. You know, I remember back in 2004, a bunch of us, we had the Southie Boxing Club, and on every Tuesday and Thursday night, we would have open sparring. You know, guys like Mickey Ward would bring guys down from Lowell. You know, guys like Manfredo and Andrade's team would come up. Matt Godfrey, Jason Estrada would come up from Rhode Island. Would have the local Irish conglomerate in Southie. Richie Capiello was managing and promoting a middleweight named Willie Gibbs at the time. He fought a historical fight, one of the greatest fights I've ever seen on ESPN, against Daniel Edouard. It was like ESPN's fight of like the decade or some dumb shit like that. And Andrade at 15 went in and just absolutely beast moded Willie Gibbs, who was at the time like a 19-0 pro, like with like 18 knockouts, and was like starting to hit the top 10. And Andrade just clowned him.
Well,
And he was just a good kid. You know, he had Dave Keefe was training him at the time, a pretty much most of my adult lifehood friend, good trainer out of Rhode Island. And like I said, I know his dad and other family members, and he's always been. And he came up through the amateur ranks with a kid I used to help out a little bit with called Nasty Nick Morganelli. So going to these shows and seeing these guys at the shows, you just get to know these guys over the years. And even at 15, you knew he had something.
So in what direction do you feel his career should go?
I think kind of in the honestly, Gervonta Davis, mold. Like, there's only really one fight out there for him, and that's the Canelo fight. I think at this stage of Triple G's career, he just outboxes Triple G and out hustles him. I think he handles Daniel Jacobs easily from a boxing standpoint. I just think the only fight out there for him that's worth taking any type of risk is Canelo. I mean, he beats up both these Charlo kids, easily. I mean, he could fight Jamel at 7 o'clock and then fight Jamal at 10 o'clock. That's how easy it would be. What do you think? What are you guys thinking about him?
I mean, I think he's boring, but that's because I just don't think he's.
Tim, you're a chick stick the long ball type of guy. You're an offensive guy. You've always been. You're an offensive guy. You don't like defense. Every sport, Tim. Think about your Mets. You're a big Ray Adonies fan. You love offense.
Ray Adonies is fantastic. He's the greatest man of football.
So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I agree with you 100%. I mean, he's not the most exciting fighter, but sometimes you don't need to be exciting to win a championship and be the best at something.
Yeah, but you have to be exciting for people to want to see you on television.
Yeah. Granted, he might not be a media darling. He might not be a sellout in his own hometown. You never know, but, he's always wanted to fight the best, and the best is Canelo. That fight will sell itself.
Absolutely, but as you were talking about risk and rewards earlier, that's more risk and reward for Canelo.
Is it really? How so?
Andres probably could beat him.
Yeah, no, I agree. But, I mean, are you really going to be able to sell not you, but are they really going to be able to sell Triple G Canelo 3? Are they going to be able to sell Canelo, Danny Jacobs, or one of these Charlo guys? What they might be able to sell is Canelo against Sergey Kovalev, maybe, but there's really no other fight. They can sell Andrade because Andrade, from a technical standpoint, is regarded as the best fighter out there, in my opinion, from a technical standpoint.
But you can sell Triple G, and I hate the Charlos. I think they're very average, but you can sell that fight better than you can sell Andrade.
With Canelo?
Yeah.
You can sell it with Andrade the same way because it's Andrade. It's just Canelo. and everybody's going to buy the Canelo fight. He could fight you or me, it would sell the same.
That's true.
In my opinion.
The issue that I think Tim pointed out is kind of like what you were saying, the risk reward factor. Why would Canelo risk a tough style in a boxer, which you see him struggle with Trout, you seen him struggle with Lawler? Why would he risk that against Andrade when, let's say, you face Charlo, who's going to be, right there to be hit?
Well, there's the rub. There's the rub, guys. The guys will never fight each other, I guess, at that point. But I mean, Canelo's legacy is already been established. Canelo's legacy is cemented, But yeah, I don't know. I just want to see Andrade get that shot at him because there's really no other fight out there for Andrade, in my opinion.
See, but that's where I kind of differ, and not to put Andrade under the bus, but it's like he really hasn't fought a top name in his whole career. I mean, truthfully, he's got, almost 30 wins, like 29, 28? I mean, the best guy he's beaten has probably been Van. And Brian apparently is having to fight with dishes. But
for centuries, the best guys don't fight each other. Look how long it took Mayweather and Pacquiao to fight each other. The best guys don't always fight each other. The best guys will never always fight each other.
Well, I agree with the Mayweather Pacquiao, but at the same time, it's like you can't tell me that Andre, while waiting for that big fight with Canelo, can't go against Charlo, Jacobs, or one of those names. But then you're going to say the risk reward, why risk losing the Alvarez fight? But then if you look at the Alvarez idea, who would you rather fight? Somebody that's more known, in my opinion, Charlo's more known than Andre as far as casual fans. So you could fight Charlo, who's an easier fight on the risk reward factor, than fight Andre, who's probably casually to fans less known and a worse style matchup than Charlo is. You think
he's casually less known? He was an Olympian. I mean, were the Charlos Olympians?
I think just the way Charlos act outside the ring, they're more known to casual fans.
Okay.
That like Broner. Broner to me is terrible. He's never been good. But the way he acts and the way you see him on TMZ and the news, more casual fans know who he is just by his outside the ring actions.
But casual fans aren't watching fights, Tom.
Well, they're buying pay-per-views.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I don't pay attention to the numbers and stuff like that. I mean, I get criticized from it all the time from colleagues down here. For someone who is so ass deep in boxing, I don't pay attention to any of it outside of the show I'm matching. So maybe they are. I mean, how are the numbers reading? I mean, how can they prove that it's a casual viewer or a casual customer as opposed to diehards like you guys and stuff like that? How do you quantify that and simplify that?
Well, I just look at, like, let's take Alvarez against G3 and that pay-per-view. If you look at the sales on that to, let's say, Alvarez versus Khan, you can see the differential of sales. I mean, Alvarez, like you said, he's going to sell. He could face me on the black corner, and it's going to do a few hundred Ks and buys. But you see when you fight the bigger names for these bigger fights, like if Alvarez was to fight like Gavalkin instead of Khan, or when he fought Cotto, Cotto has a strong fan base of Puerto Rico. So you're going to see more pay-per-view sales and that end. Rather than that's what I'm thinking. With Andre, one of the problems is casually, he's a hard sell. Style-wise, isn't exciting for people that do know of him. But for the casual fans, people see Charlos on TMZ or running their mouth on like boxing websites and things like that. So it's more of a familiar name. So in my opinion, Canelo can have an easier style, an easier opponent, and probably sell more pay-per-views by going against Charlo. Why wouldn't he take on Charlo if Charlo's willing to take the fight than Andre, who's a tougher fight and a tougher sell?
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about the numbers and stuff like that. What would it be would it be 1.2 buys with Charlo and 900,000 buys with Andrade? I don't know enough about that.
Now it's a little bit less important because with Canelo on Dazn, it's more subscription based. But at the same time, you still have people that are buying Dazn just for the month for a Canelo fight. So it still kind of works the same in my opinion. Whereas if it's a G3, that's going to bring in more people subscribing than it was Andre. But that's my opinion. But I think the numbers kind of correlate to it at a certain extent.
Okay, I see what you're saying now.
Well, I got an easier question for you, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about Chavez Jr. returning?
I think he's still young enough. He can make some money. I mean, he's talented. He's obviously got the lineage and the pedigree. I don't think he has, though, what his dad had. That determination, that dogged will. I mean, he grew up, with a silver spoon in his mouth and a gold spoon in his ass, So I don't know if he has the drive, I mean, think about it, I mean, you're the son of what could be the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, one of the greatest fighters of all time. You by default have to fight. And just think of the pressures that come with that. So I think when he decides, or if he ever does decide to, I want to do this, I want to fight because I want to be a fighter, not because I feel obligated that I have to be a fighter because of my dad, I think he's always going to be a laughing stock, and he's always going to, be looked at differently. I mean, a lot of people are clowning him for the fight he had, this recent fight. He fought a guy who wasn't that good, but who are you supposed to fight when you're coming back after 2, 3, or 4 years, whatever it's been for him? You're supposed to fight a guy like that, So I think he's young enough. He can still make a little bit of noise, a little bit of word, and you can still sell his name.
I mean, I agree with that. I definitely, he had a media workout, and the media workout had hundreds of fans in it. I don't have any problem with the opponent he faced. Like you said, he was coming off years of layoff. What I did find interesting is he called out Alfredo Angulo, of all people, after the fight.
Happened in September.
Well, that's great. That's great. I mean, Angulo still kind of has that. Well, think about it. Think about the fights that Mexican fighters, Latin American fighters, for that matter, pride themselves on their machismo. And think of your most recent, balls to the walls Mexican type fighters. Who do you think of? Lay it out in the line, blood every fight, cut every fight. You think Angulo and Margarito, So if Chavez can maybe beat Angulo, he may get a little bit, granted Angulo's he's not even on the backside of the hill. He's back in the valley. He's definitely done. He's washed up. He's not a name anymore. I mean, he's not a viable name anymore. But to put that on your resume, like I beat a guy who, to hardcore Mexican fight fans, is one of their true warriors, So maybe to have that, if he beats that, it might, give him a little bit more crossover to the hardcore Latin American Mexican fan in regards to, I beat Angulo. What are you talking about?
I mean, I see what you're saying, but Angulo might be the most washed up fighter in the game right now.
No doubt about that. No doubt about that. Tim, you're right. You're right. But think about it, right? Now, what if Bernard Hopkins decides to come back at 55 or whatever he is now and say someone like Andrade beats him? I mean, did you beat Bernard Hopkins or did you beat Bernard Hopkins at 55? You still beat Bernard Hopkins.
I mean, that's different. That's like, so you give someone like Larry Holmes credit for beating Ali.
Yeah.
Why?
100%.
But Ali was beyond done. So
Larry Holmes beat him up in the gym for 5 years.
Yeah, but
that was Tim, I think that was more of a coronation of passing the torch. It's Larry's turn.
I understand that, but Ali had a 2-year layoff before that too?
Yeah, maybe longer.
I think it was 2 years. I think 77-79, but
and it was painful to watch. It was painful to watch. You know, I'm fortunately old enough. I actually saw that fight. It was painful to watch, but I hear what you're saying. You know, Angulo. I mean, there's other guys he could be calling out, still relevant kind of guys, not as dangerous, but you know, from that Mexican warrior spirit, Aztecan warrior. You know, Angulo is, you know, blood and guts and an easier fight for Chavez from a technical, not dangerous. This guy's going to sit in front of me. I'm not going to have to chase him all over the building and still have a name.
I mean, Chavez is going to kill him. You know, it's not even going to be a fight.
I think for an easy opponent, though, Angulo's an easy sell as well. And that's why, you can sell Angulo easily. And the risk factor is probably the same that it was for his last fight against, I don't remember that guy, Bravo, whatever the hell his name was. And it's just like 5 times a bigger sell. So I could see him making that fight. And I think I brought up to you, Tim, like a week ago or so. If Chavez really wants to try to get a title, if Pascal can avoid fighting Brown in an immediate rematch, Pascal Chavez makes so much sense for both. Because I can see Chavez outworking Pascal, who's kind of shot. And I could also see Pascal maybe land a few big right hands, and Chavez kind of folds mentally and says, the sport's not for me. So it seems like that would be a good fight for both, and something where Chavez could actually get a chance to get a belt in.
That's a terrible fight, but I get your sense.
It's a terrible fight, but it's an easy sell with Chavez's name, what Pascal just did. I mean, you could put it on,
Pascal landed 49 punches in 7 rounds.
And here he is. He's now champion of the world, though, Tim.
I know, it's amazing, man. God bless Marcus Brown's chin. I got another question for you, Brian.
Yeah, go ahead.
So why do you think fighters, I hear, I read somewhere that James Kirkland is making a comeback.
Why?
Exactly, thank you. But why do you think fighters do that? Why do you think they come back?
I mean, I don't, Tim, maybe they, don't have nothing else that they some of these, when you're an elite fighter for a long time and whatnot, you've been training, even, other sports. You've been playing golf or baseball since you were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, training since you were 8, 9, 10, fighting. You really don't know how to do anything else. How's he going to make a living?
No, you're right.
I think maybe even past the living, which makes sense for a lot. Like the guy that just beat Curtis Stevens, Amataso, he said he didn't want to fight, but there's nothing else he can do. So that's kind of glad that he did get the win against Stevens. But I think for a lot of fighters also that don't necessarily need the money, I think it could be just the admiration of the crowd, the big lights and just that feeling of, being in the ring. Not that I box professionally, but I imagine it has to give you a rush to come down to the ring and hear the crowd cheer and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, Tom, you're right. You're definitely right. And, some people miss the spotlight. Some people miss the limelight. Some people miss there's James Kirkland. Or there's Alfredo Angulo. He's still fighting. I just watched him on ESPN type of deal. He'll never have to buy a beer in a local bar again type of situation. It's kind of like, that high school quarterback who, when he's 31, still goes to high school keg parties. There goes Brian Dillon. He was all conference for 3 years in a row. Dude, I'm 40. I shouldn't be here. That type of, they can't let it go of the spotlight, or they want to be in the spotlight. And also, I don't know what James Kirkland got going on outside the ring, but I work with a couple local fighters up here who have no aspirations of being a world champion. No, they don't have possibly the skills to be a world champion. They're busy selling their brand for what they do outside the ring. So maybe, James Kirkland may have a project, outside the ring to where, his name being in the spotlight could boost revenue, sales, and advertisement notoriety for his outside the ring branding. I don't know. I can't speak to that, but I do know there's a couple guys up here locally who tell me all the time, Brian, don't get me beat. I can't sell my product if I get losses.
Oh, that has to be you as a matchmaker, Jesus.
Yeah. So, Maybe Kirkland's got something going on like that, or it could be a combination of both. And it could be a little bit of everything. He still feels competitive. He still feels like he can make some money. It still feels like he might be able to beat a couple guys here, a couple guys there. And the one thing, as we all get older, the one thing the last thing to go is your punching power. Your hand speed goes, your eyesight goes, your knees go, but you'll still always be able to punch really hard. And Kirkland will always have a puncher's chance.
I agree with that.
Or he could have some little person rabbiting in his ear. Oh, you can still do this, champ. You can still do that, champ. He could have that, too.
I mean, he's going to reunite with Ann Wolf. I don't think that's going to make a difference because he's 35 years old and doesn't look like he has any legs left. So I just hope he doesn't get hurt. That's really it.
Well, they just have to be smart with him, They just have to be smart with him. I mean, you don't know if there's anything left until you go out there and step on the gas.
That's true. That's true. But I don't know. With Kirkland, he never really had any skills besides that punching power. So, if he was a fighter, I'm sorry?
He made a lot of money doing it. He got a lot of TV fights for just his punching power alone. So, if he can knock out he also could be cashing out too. They could put a couple of strings where he fights a Larry Smith, a Kevin Womack, or Jimmy LeBlancs of the world, gets a couple wins, and then they may be able to cash him out against someone to make a little bit more money before he finally actually retires again.
Let's do Chavez Jr. versus James Kirkland. Let's make that happen.
They can fight in my backyard. You could do a web podcast with it live.
Let's make that happen. Yes. All right. Brian, who was the easiest fighter that you've dealt with in boxing? In terms of making a fight.
Oh, Greg Hackett.
My man, Greg Hackett. All right.
Greg Hackett. As much as Greg Hackett and I go back and forth, Greg Hackett. Pick up the phone. Hey, G, it's Brian. Hey, listen. He fought for me a couple weeks ago. I called him up. I said, G, he goes, what time do I have to be there? I said, 8:30 in the morning for an eye exam. He goes, I'll be there at 8:15.
Damn.
Night before the fight. Greg Hackett, easy. Jimmy LeBlanc. Most of the opponents that I use, the guys I use repetitiously, Jose Felix, David Rohn, Santos Martinez, guys like that. It's just, they don't ask any questions. They just say, what time do I got to be there? They don't even ask who I'm fighting until they get there.
Mm.
So those guys, from a A-side standpoint, the easiest, people to deal with, easiest fight to deal with, Ty Barnett.
Really?
Yeah. Ty is just like, yeah, whatever, get him, go get him. He just, a lot of the A-side guys that they got videos. How many amateur fights? How tall is he? How fat is he? How big of his feet? Does he got a big neck, small neck? It's like a dating site sometimes, But Ty Barnett, there was just never no questions asked.
Well, on the flip side, who was the hardest to deal with?
Oh my God! Wow, take your pick. Take your pick. Let me see. I'm gonna talk about someone I'm recently dealing with. I'm gonna have to say this kid Nigel Fennell.
Okay.
4-0 prospect out of Richmond, Virginia. Got a little bit of amateur pedigree. He's got a good manager behind him, but a not too experienced trainer and team around him. Yeah, it's always, what's his blood type? What's his astrological sign? Does he like men? Does he like women? All these different questions, Is there any video? Look, you want video, go to Redbox. I'm not a video guy, I present names. I'm not doing your homework. I'm not doing your research. Here it is, if you want me to ask how tall he is he right-handed, I can maybe do that for you. But, dude, do your own homework. What do you got a team for? What are you paying 33 1/3 for?
By looking at who he's faced, Jesus Christ, 0-8-1, 1-5, 0-1, and in the pro debut in his last fight.
Oh, yeah, listen, the Jared Walden fight, it was on a card I did for Cornflake LaManna, who I love working for from a promotional standpoint, you know. Thomas, I did one show for Thomas, Rising Star Promotions, and he was chill and easy to deal with as well. I forgot to throw that out there. I did the one show with him down here in Virginia, but yeah, Fennell fought Nigel Fennell fought Jared Walden on the card in Norfolk. It was a double knockdown. In the referee, they both get up and do the count. The referee waves off the opponent kid, the B-side kid, waves it off. They both went down, but he waved the other kid off. It was amazing. But my favorite guy to deal with, not the easiest, not the what. My favorite guy is I hope I pronounce the name. Yank Palana. He's Albanian. His name is the Sexy Albanian from Kosovo. He's a Maryland-based fighter, white kid trained by Simon Brown. He's one of those, you know, it's just like, who am I fighting? Where am I fighting? You know, and he's always in a dogfight, always in a war. And he's fighting in Houston, Texas, in 2 weeks against Ralph Igabuke, 12-2 middleweight prospect out of Houston. So, but Genk Palana is by far my favorite guy to work with right now. Doesn't ask questions, doesn't have all this bullshit pomp and circumstances like most of these drama queens do with me. You know, he's just, okay, I'll be there. That's it.
That's what the sport needs more of, guys like that. Would you say your least favorite person in the whole sport as far as boxing, not necessarily fighters, but behind the scenes people? Would you say that your least favorite person is Benjamin Buttons?
Oh, David Selwyn. He used to be Tom for the longest time. Then I get ripped off by this guy, Benny Collins at Panther Piss Promotions, or whatever the name of it was, down in Florida. But my new favorite guy never to work with again is Ruben De Jesus, the matchmaker out of Florida. Awful. Awful. Stay away from those guys in Florida, guys. I'm telling you, stay away from outside of Florida. The only person worth a grain of salt as far as matchmaking, promoter, or anything like that. Now, fighters and trainers, managers, different story. But agents, promoters, matchmakers, Chico Rivas, nobody else. I won't even, if it comes up on my phone from a Florida area code, I don't answer it.
Oh, wow.
I've gotten stiffed four times in my entire boxing career. 3 times was in the state of Florida. Tim, you know what I'm talking about with one of them.
I do. I can tell the story. I do know that story very well, yes.
Tell it, Tim.
Awful. What happened?
Tell it, Tim. Give us a Cliff Notes version.
I'll tell the story. Panther Promotion, yes. I was working with Victor Weinstein, which Brian is familiar with.
Yep.
And I was the only one that was working on the show that was in New York. The rest of them were in Florida. I was young. I was trying to get my name up. And so Victor said, do I want to match a show with him? And I said, yeah, of course. I mean, why would I ever turn that down? And he said that it was done by Benny Collins and some guy named Harold Weston.
Harold Weston, yep, former fighter.
Yes. And so what happened was we were doing the show. You know, I was coordinating back and forth with Victor from Florida. I was in New York. And we had our main event dropped out, and we called Brian because Brian is a great agent, matchmaker. And he filled the fight very quickly. There was a fee that was promised, of course. I never got paid for anything in the show. Brian never got paid anything in the show. I don't know if Victor did, because I'm pretty sure that he did, because I lost contact with him. So I'm pretty sure that you already know the deal, Brian. I mean, I've worked with Brian before that, and it's always been cool.
Yeah.
So I worked with him before that, and it was my second time working with Victor. The first time I did Dennis Grachev versus Eddie Caminero. I did that fight, and I got paid for it. So I was like, okay, I'll work with him, and I never got paid for anything. I had a fight on there. It was Henry Crawford versus Damian Frias, and Henry Crawford's manager called me a week later and said that the check bounced and that he was gonna sue me. And I was like, listen, man. I was like, I'll get that taken care of for you. And thankfully that was taken care of. But I mean, the show was just absolute shit. And it was just, I don't know if they ever did a card after that, but
they did a co-promotion a couple of years ago with Marshall Kaufman and King's Promotion down there. But Tim, I don't know if I ever did tell you this. The following year, tax season, they sent me a tax form.
Get the fuck out of here.
For the money they were supposed to pay me. They sent me an I-9 or W-9 or whatever the fuck the thing is. I was like, you got to be shitting me. I called the IRS. I said, hey, I got this form. I got this contract form from a promoter I was supposed to work with. I did do some work, but he never paid me. And the IRS straight face said, well, that was income earned. You have to file for it, even though you didn't get paid. So I had to pay taxes on like $600 I never get paid for. Yeah. Hey, guys, I don't want to change the subject. We'll get right back to boxing. But can you believe Dak Prescott is demanding $40 million a year?
I cannot. No.
I mean, to me, when Elliott got suspended 2 years ago, whatever it was, you saw Prescott really, really struggle.
Yeah.
And if you're going to pay anybody out of him, Cooper, and Prescott, I'd pay Elliott.
Yeah.
That should be my number one.
Dak Prescott would be the last person I paid that. I'd pay Cooper first.
Yeah, he'd be 1, Cooper to be 2, and Prescott would be 3. I think Prescott's only as good as who you have around him.
Yes.
I mean, Prescott was...
They just flashed it across the screen in ESPN. That's why I jumped in real quick with it. I can't believe that fool wants $40 million a year.
Yeah, he turned down like $30 million a year or something like that.
Yeah, a little over $30 million a year he turned down.
Yep. Oh well, back to boxing. Any other questions or comments, thoughts, anything? Can I hype my show coming up?
Yeah, we were gonna wrap it up, but yeah, definitely. We can hype up the show.
Real quick, yeah. September 14th, Sterling, Virginia, the Michaels and Son Dulles Sportsplex. I don't know if you know, Tom, but I think Tim knows that, for a while I was working with some females in boxing, Tori Nelson, Jennifer Salinas, Tyra Rashida Douglas, and a couple others, Tierra Brown, Frenchon Cruz, and earlier before she won the title. Tori Nelson is having a retirement fight. It's her last fight as a professional fighter. She was one of the pioneers in women boxing. She's having September 14th, her last date, in her hometown right now, Ashburn, Virginia, Sterling, right next to each other. Cy Nation Sports, also on the card, Filip Stankovic, an exciting Serbian fighter now residing in Virginia. He was like a world amateur champion as a kickboxer and some other martial art type thing. He's trying his boxing out. He's 5-1 right now, real good guy. Took a big step up fight, one of his last times out against Vaughn Alexander, who is no slouch. He lost a decision, but he took a step up. You get to appreciate guys like that. We got Milad and Miljas, another European fighter fighting out of Canada, fighting on the card. That's September 14th, Cy Nation Sports, match made by Brian Dillon Boxing. Thanks, guys.
No problem. Brian's also on Twitter and Facebook. If you're a young fighter, maybe see a card that he's matchmaking and want to throw your name in the hat, you can find both those if you want to plug either of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Any fighters or managers or trainers that are going to listen to this or is listening to this, my phone number, 571-839-5162. Like Tom just said, Twitter, Brian Dillon Boxing on Facebook. You want some guys to get fights lined up, just be careful. There's so many guys out there that are just say they're matchmakers. They say they're agents. They say they know this. They don't know. They say they know that. They don't know fish hooks from left hooks. They couldn't manage a blockbuster video. So be careful. Always get a second and third opinion on a fight. Read the fine print in your contract.
And there you go. Trusted from a man that's been working behind the scenes for many, many years. Me and Tim both tried our hand at it, and we realized the sport is just fucking shit. So we just rather do a podcast.
Well, guys, I think you guys did the hard part. You tried to do the hard part first. You jumped right. You just jumped in the deep end of the Pacific Ocean, I think, right off the bat, and got that business, sour taste in your mouth. I was 20 years. I was doing 20 years of other things in boxing, non-business related, before I tried the business side. So I'd already, not to say you guys don't love the game and didn't love the game, but I'd already had this like 20-year of appreciation, running a gym, working with fighters, serving on a commission. You know, I seen all the other facets and aspects of it. And I'm like, you know what? I want to try the business side of it. So that is what has allowed me, I think, to weather a lot of shitty storms. And as you guys know, it's a shit show. It's a rat race, whatever you want to call it. It's awful, you know? But I think, you know, my 20 years of doing this, that, and the third in other capacities kind of prepped me for that, because I kind of had an understanding a little bit. But, yeah, it's fun. We miss good guys like you doing the work in the business, too, by the way.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. I just remember when Benjamin Buttons called me one day talking shit. And then when I saw him at one of Madison's fights, and I realized he was crippled. And then
yeah. And then Tim, do you know who Benjamin Buttons is, Tim?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, David Selwyn. He's been a manager over the years, primarily female fighters.
Yeah.
You know, he talking all this online and on the internet and stuff like that, and he looks like a dried up peanut when you see him. He's like 4'1" and 91 pounds. I take shits bigger than him.
I know the sad part is I knew boxing pushed me to my limit. When I saw him and realized how bad it would get, but I still wanted to fight.
Hey, listen. Here's when I stopped paying any attention to that guy, right? We're going back and forth arguing about something. This time we're on the phone. He said, Google my name. You'll see it everywhere. I don't see your name anywhere. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, Google my name.
He lived off fame just by hooking up with, especially at that time, female boxing was so scarce.
Yeah.
But he hooked up with that Hawaiian girl, last name begins with an O. And he managed her, whatever her name is. I know she's like Hawaiian or something.
Yeah,
and she like won a belt.
Yeah.
And she won a belt, but it's women's boxing. You could be like 3 and 4 and win a belt. It's not the hardest thing in the world to do.
Yeah, he was riding those coattails and oh my God. Hey, real quick, you asked me another one who the worst person I ever dealt with? Tim.
Yeah.
Tim, Andy Nance has to be up there for me. I've never dealt with him, but the one interaction I had with him, I know that's your boy, Tim, but Andy Nance never did anything for me.
Nah, I definitely, he was good to me. So
yeah, that's all that matters.
He was good to me. He got me a lot of checks, and I worked one fight with him. I actually worked what's his name? He fought Sean Monahan.
Okay. Billy Bailey.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorite guys to deal with. He's another guy too. What time do I gotta be there? I like Billy Bailey.
He's a really good guy.
I think I got Billy Bailey his last win against Brian Cohen, I think it was.
Really?
Yes. In Philly. I sent Billy over there. I think he beat Brian Cohen.
I was in his corner for the Sean Monahan fight, just collecting his spit, basically. That was it.
Hey, Tim, fan my balls, will you? Yeah, but, I mean, don't get me wrong, Tim. Andy didn't do anything wrong to me. He didn't stiff me, anything like that. I was trying to help with a fight. He goes, I need the fighter's phone number. I need this, I need that. I'm like, for what? Why do you need the phone? Top Rank Boxing needs their phone number. I'm like, no, they don't. What are you talking about? So I got the feeling he was going to try to circumnavigate me and circumvent me, whatever that big word is I'm trying to use. He was going to go around my back. That's the feeling I got, But, again, full disclosure, he didn't do anything wrong with me. He didn't stiff me. He didn't screw me over like some of these other lackeys, who, Anthony Capone and Ruben DeJesus and stuff like that. But
Anthony Capone, now that you mention it, that guy. He, one time, I guess he had gotten, when Povetkin was, still early in his career, and he had gotten a fight offer for Povetkin, and I don't remember what the purse is. I'm just going to use just ballpark idea figures, but he called me because he was looking for Madison to take the fight.
Yeah.
And what they offered was really low. It was I think maybe $12K or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, there should be more money. So I asked around, and then somebody else was they were offered the fight, I think in the $20K.
Yep. Yep.
And
The
I'm like,
poker
all right,
going in
so
his pocket. Yeah.
when I talked to him, it went up from like 12K to like 15K, and then he was like, it's really 17K, but we'll split that extra 2K. And then back in my mind, I'm still thinking he's getting X amount of 3,000s, and then on top of that, I'm thinking, for people that knew me in the sport, knew that me and Madison were friends. I mean,
Yep.
that we grew up together and shit like that. So why would I fuck over a dude that I grew up with for like just $1,000?
Mm-hmm.
Boxing.
That's hey, you know his real name is not even Anthony Capone.
What
It's
is
like
it?
Wayne Murdoch or some dumb shit like that. You know? But listen again, as bad as he was in as much as the $6,048 he owes me, I made so much more money working with him. So it's kind of like a catch-22. I mean, he did stiff me a large amount of money, but I did make like 5 times what he stiffed me. So, it's kind of like you do what you do, you're damned if you don't type of deal. But again, I wouldn't have gotten to where I was, matchmaking-wise, booking-wise, if it wasn't for like Anthony Capone and guys like that, Rick Glazer, Robert Middleman, John Elbaum, guys like that early on in my matchmaking booking agent career that opened up a couple doors for me.
Yeah. I guess in the end, it all worked out best for you.
I guess I haven't up until this past weekend and with the Ruben DeJesus thing down in Florida, I hadn't been stiff since I worked with Capone last. So I'll never, guys, Florida, I'm never answering that phone. They could be calling me for a free trip from Disney World. If it's got a Florida zip area code, I'm not answering the phone. Free Disney cruise, I'm not answering it.
Good advice to all matchmakers out there. Yes.
Well, I mean, that wraps up, I think, a pretty good comical episode with a good behind-the-scenes view. But for any fighters, managers, check out Brian on Facebook or Twitter. And also for anybody in that DMV area, definitely check out that show coming up that he mentioned.
No doubt. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for the time.
Oh, no problem. We'll have you on. Anytime you have something to pitch out to the fans, just let us know. We'll bring you on. And until next week, everybody, we'll talk about the Kovalev Yard fight coming up. And we should have another special guest on next week as well. So until then, everyone, take care.
Bye, guys.
All right. Peace.